All right, we are live to go. It's Tuesday, May 15th at 10:02 a.m. We're gonna call the Dudley Economic Development Committee meeting to order. As standard, we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The first thing on the agenda is to accept the meeting minutes of April 17th, 2018. There was one change, which was in our discussion. It's almost down to the first paragraph. It's a punch list for projected needs for Nichols. It says for the next meeting. It was for a future meeting, so we're just going to make that minor change. Any other changes? All right, seeing none, accept a motion to accept the minutes of April 17th, 2018.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of April 17th, 2018 as written.
As amended.
As amended, I'm sorry, as
Yeah.
amended.
Is there a second to that?
You second it?
All right, Brian's got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next on the agenda, Ron Barron, Central Mass Regional Plan and Phase 2 discussion. All right.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for letting me come to the meeting.
Good morning.
I was originally going to come and just give you guys an update on when we were going to get started on Phase 2, remind everybody what we were going to do, and sort of go, just sort of set the table for what we're going to be doing this year. However, since my conversation with Don when he invited me to come to this meeting, a couple of things have come up. So I thought I would give you guys an update on that and tell you what we're thinking about doing at this point. The first thing, I don't know if you guys were aware, this actually happened a little earlier this year, was that Webster, the town of Webster applied for and also got a DLTA grant to do an economic development. So we were going to pursue seeing if there was some way we might be able to coordinate at least one aspect of each of these separate plans, particularly around the West Main Street intersection, and see if there was something we could do with that. And so that was something that was a little bit different than what we originally had laid out for this phase, but was something we were going to pursue. However, we also found out that there is some additional state funding that we may be able to apply for, and we're going to be looking into that. And we just found out about that, I want to say 3 days ago. And we have, of course, a week to apply for it. But what it is it's a, yeah. Thankfully, this is a grant that we've applied for in the past. We applied for it for other towns in last October, and we were successful in getting funding for that. And what we are looking at doing is seeing if we can leverage some of the funding that we've already allocated to the towns of Dudley and the towns of Webster to act as the match that's required under this state. And if that is an eligible match, we can ask for up to $50,000 per town to do basically what we've already laid out we're going to do, just in an expanded scope. So we're going to be exploring that this week to see if, I believe it's actually due by the end of the month. So we have to come up with the scope and the approach and present that. The only thing that would be required from the town is we'd have to get a letter of support from the, I believe we got it from the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen, one or the other. So, but that's going to I think that's a pretty exciting opportunity to help expand what we're going to do. So what we were thinking is we're going to explore that this month. That's not necessarily going to change the timeline that we had, because we don't know when the state is going to give us a word one way or the other, whether or not they're going to award that grant. So we are anticipating that we're going to apply for that this month, and then next month we're going to continue the timeline. We're going to continue the work as laid out in the report that we reported on last winter. And then if we find out we get additional funds, fantastic. If not, we'll just pursue what we were going to do. And just to remind everybody, what we had laid out for this year was a three-pronged outreach effort. We wanted to do 3 focus groups, one focusing on the Route 12 Main Street intersection, that section of town, one focusing on the area around Nichols College, and another one focusing on agriculture. And I've already compiled lists of contacts for the agriculture. I've made some contacts as part of the last phase of the project among businesses around the Nichols College area. And we are going to be compiling a list of other businesses to contact and do outreach for the Main Street area. I already have a few because we made some contacts with the Webster-Dudley Business Alliance. So they're going to be sort of the foundation that we're going to go with for starting those outreach, but I'd also like to try to make contact with some more businesses in that particular part of town, because that seems like a really key opportunity. Also, I've been discussing with Don some of the updates on what's been going on with the Stevens Mill, and I know there's been some developer interest around there. So we're going to see if we can pursue bringing some other people in that we can talk to and see how we can best leverage that as sort of the cornerstone of that particular area. So our timeline that we're looking at, I just realized I didn't mention that, is we're going to try to get started. We're going to obviously apply for this additional funding for this month, and then we're going to start doing the outreach and setting up the scheduling for the focus groups starting next month. So the project will be running basically from June until around November is when we're going to be doing all of the outreach and collection. That's sort of our window for doing that. Really, the end of October is our window for doing all those focus groups, because then that will give us the November and then whatever we have left of December in order to actually finish the report, compile all the information, and get ready for phase 3.
I'll open it up to questions from the board.
I think it's a great opportunity, and thank you very much for updating us. I think the extra money, I think, would go a long way. I mean, you're saying it would be an additional $50,000 if it was accepted, 50 for Dudley and then 50 for Webster? Is that?
Well, we have to do, we wouldn't be able to get the total 50,000. 50,000 is the cap per town.
Cap per town.
Because one of the requirements of the particular grant is that we have to put up a 25% match, and DLTA money is an eligible match. So what we're looking to see is if we can take the money that's already been allocated for the 2 projects, which I think is about $17,000, and then use that as the 25% match, and then we can ask the state for 75% on top of that, and that would be the limit that we could ask for.
Okay.
But it would be a substantial amount, and what we would hope to be able to do from that is to produce 2 economic development strategic plans so that the town would still be able to meet its obligations under the community compact. So you would have the strategic plan that we're looking to produce over the next couple of years. But also we would do that for Dudley, we would do something like that for Webster, but we would also have a unified Main Street plan as part of that. And we still have to discuss how we would scope that out and how we would try to flesh that out, but we need to get that done this week so that we'll be able to present it to we can send it to the town, and then we can get the letter of support in order to do the application.
Now, you say unified Main Street kind of plan. Would the sewer treatment plant be part of that as far as infrastructure?
It certainly would. That would be something we would want to look at, because if with the additional funding, we would want to take the opportunity to look at everything that is going to impact the sewer, electrical, everything that would go into it, and that we may not, because with the funding, with the way we're doing it right now, we are going to take a look at that, but we're not going to be able to really take an in-depth look. We'll be able to discuss it. We'll be able to explore it, but without additional funding, it'll be difficult to really explore a lot of solid options for that. But if we can get additional funding, then we'll really be able to take a deep dive into the whole infrastructure question, including transportation and all of that.
All right, so just, I'm a simple person. I just want to make sure I have it clear in my mind. We're just going to continue on with our Phase 2 economic development plan, right? The funding has been resolved with the legislature. Did we get it back?
With the
Phase 2, wasn't there an issue?
There's issues with next year's
Next year's.
DLTL
Okay.
allocation. The last I heard was that it had passed the House and they were looking to reconcile it in the
Okay.
Senate. I haven't seen an update on that, but that doesn't affect this year's funding.
All right.
So the only thing that would impact is we do phase 2. If we don't get the additional funding that we were talking about today, and we finish phase 2, then it would depend on whether or not we would be able to do the final phase, which was the recommendations and implementation strategy, which we were gonna do next year based on DLTA funding.
All right. And should this grant be approved, then we could actually look at seeing how Dudley and Webster, some commonalities and things we share, and come up with a plan for either West Main Street, or because we share the sewer treatment plant, you know, incorporate that. But if that grant doesn't come through, we're not discussing Webster with our plan.
There's the possibility, and we haven't discussed this with Webster, so I don't know how they would feel about this, but we wanted to look into the possibility of having a small component, at least looking at the zoning for the two parts of Main Street, to see if there were some compatibilities, or if there are any recommendations that would apply to each that we might be able to do, because it is such a key corridor and there is so much overlap right there. But it wasn't going to be a central component to either
All
plan,
right.
because they actually had asked to look at some sites over along 395, and I know that the central focus here was the two little business pockets plus the agriculture, so they're not.
Well, don't forget Lower Schofield, too. I mean,
Yes,
where
yes.
Henke Sass is and that whole area, that's probably as ready to build as you're gonna get for commercial. All right. Does anybody else have any questions on this? All right. Don, did you?
Good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to pursue that this week. Hopefully, I'm going to get that. Well, not hopefully. I have to get it fleshed out this week, and then I'll be in touch with Don and the town administrator to find out how we move forward with letting the town know what we want to do and seeing if they'd be willing to support it, and then try to get that applied for by the end of the month.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome, thank you, Ron.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no
Ron.
problem. Thank you.
This is a perfect time. Everybody's had a chance to review the Phase 1 presentation and the recommendations that Central Mass Regional Planning had put together. I think the time has come to actually vote to officially use that as our Phase 1 of the Economic Development Plan. What we'll do is incorporate all the other department plans that we got, you know, whether it was from the library or water, sewer, or whatever. And so I guess what I'm looking for is a vote that we accept Phase 1 recommendation of Central Mass Regional Planning as presented, and proceed on to Phase 2 at this point. And so is someone willing to make that motion?
I make a
Okay.
motion to accept Phase 1 plan as presented by, remind me of the letters.
Central Mass Regional Planning?
Yep, Central Mass Regional Planning. Okay.
Yeah. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
All right, Todd has seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so then what I'll do is I will, I'll assemble a package, I'll put it online, and then I'll schedule a meeting with the town administrator and the board of selectmen, just to advise them that this is what our recommendation is, and to proceed and get just kind of publicize it so the world can actually see the report and everything. All right. Thank you. All right.
Just
Sure.
so you know, there was, I don't know if the version that you guys have had any noticeable errors in it. I didn't think it did, but we did have a version that our executive director had seen that had a couple of errors. So I made some corrections, and I'm going to send it to Don.
all right.
So that you guys have the
So we'll have the
absolute-
cleaned, latest and greatest. All right, perfect. All right. So next thing on the agenda is the response from the Joint Committee on Education, Chapter 70. I continue to kind of play around with this thing you know, it results from the meeting about the whole Chapter 70 that we had with the regional school district and the funding issues. But I just wanted everybody to have a copy of some of the correspondence. I have emailed so many different people in the House and Senate in the leadership positions, anything related to education. This was the only response I got from all of my emails. And it basically says, so the whole thing was, you know, are you willing to start over with Chapter 70? And so I just said, you know, tying in school funding into property taxes, it's got a whole list of issues, and I list them out. Elderly on fixed incomes, you know, it's forcing them out of their homes. Poor homeowners can't afford it. You know, a whole bunch of different stuff. Their response was, "Hi, my name is Angelina. I'm the research director for the Joint Committee on Education. On behalf of Rep. Pasek, I'd like to thank you for reaching out to our office regarding this issue. There are currently 2 proposals that are expected to get taken up during the fall's election, and one of them will be to raise the income tax on those with salaries that exceed $1 million. The proceeds from the tax increase would go towards education and transportation. Rep. Pasek would like to see the outcome of that question before considering any changes such as those that you are proposing. Please let me know if you have any further questions." So I just thanked Angelina for getting back, and same old, right? Definition of insanity: keep doing the same thing, expect different results. So it's going to be pushing water uphill, and I got to see if I'm up for this battle, because it's going to be beyond. So I just wanted to update the board. We'll continue to pester them. The annual report. I think, did I give a copy to everybody? I think I mailed.
In the packet.
Yeah, it was in the packet. So every year, each department in the town has to do a report summarizing basically the previous year's activities. And what they do is they assemble that into a town report, like an annual report, so that any of the residents can review it and see it. So I just tried to do some of the highlights of, and it's always kind of like a year's in the rear. Yeah. So, you know, I talked about the town website, the reorganization of our officers, large portion based upon the economic development plan and what we had done there and what we had accomplished, the warrant articles, and the Dudley Trail and Greenway application to the National Park Service that we supported Ken and the rail trail on. Is there anything I missed on this? I mean, you don't want to be too verbose, but I mean, it kind of just took the highlights of different things there, and
I think it's great, John.
all right, so that's what I submitted. Next on the agenda, town meeting warrant articles. I looked at the warrant, and right after this meeting, I have to run over to Greg and Michelle. Somewhere there was a miscommunication between what we sent and what's actually on the article. And I don't know if it's salvageable or if we have to pass it over and redo it, or if there's still time to get it amended before town meeting. So there were 2 articles, and I'm going to send them. So, pass that. If you remember right, there was the Recreation Commission and the Agriculture Commission. And what we were looking for was bylaw change, because committees, this is the first meeting you were on last time, right? Committees are usually temporary. Commissions are permanent. And we also wanted this Recreation Commission to have some bite, to have some traction, right? So as part of the economic development plan, we talked to a whole bunch of different people, because we were trying to focus in on, right, work, you know, live, work, and play in Dudley. And so having a strong Recreation Commission that had authority, had budgets, and clearly was given the task of things such as management of the beaches. All right, management of the open space. We have a lot of open space and conservation land that just not being utilized. With the rail trails, anything with boating, fishing. So these two, and then the Agricultural Commission was a permanent commission. More and more towns are actually starting to move this direction too. We were at that Worcester Regional Economic Development thing, and towns are now actually starting to establish these commissions as well because of the federal and state programs that are designed to help farmers and agriculture in the state. What we didn't want was something temporary, and the way the current warrant article looks, it basically just says, hey, you know, we're gonna set up a new committee. They have the right number of, we had 5 town residents, you know, and town administrator, DPW, they have that, but it's kind of at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. And it's not a true bylaw change. And so, this is what we voted on. And I'm gonna try to see if we can get the actual wording in here. What we weren't familiar with was what section of the bylaws.
You have to add 2 sections to the town bylaws, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm gonna try to figure out real quick after the meeting. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. I will try to, hopefully, we don't have to pass it over, because I'd really like to get the Recreation Commission established and the Agricultural Commission established. At least so we can start fielding members and, you know, those that want to serve on it.
So what do you mean by pass it over?
So at town meeting, you can vote to approve an article, or, you know, decline it, or pass it over for further information.
Okay,
And so you basically postpone it to the next town meeting, which would be another 6 months from now.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. What I'll try to do is after the meeting, if we think it's salvageable, I'll shoot everybody an email and just say, hey, look, we're gonna go. I mean, we might have to print out a whole bunch of these and include them with the packet when people walk in. And that'd be all right to do that. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that.
Good, thank you.
Next up, town planner update. Don, what do you got?
Well, I've been to a few workshops, and I've got some handouts for you. First of all, we've been talking a lot about the SEDS meeting. You were just talking about it, John, so here's an update on just what the SEDS is. It's a brief update. It tells about the meetings that are going to be held by the Regional Chamber of Commerce, and it's very good. Also went to a workshop on, it's called branding and wayfinding. So there's another more just how you market and sell your community, and how you set up the signage for it to achieve that goal. That's a handout from that. Also, I went to the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development's 2018 Economic Development Summit a week ago. And they held several sessions about different types of economic development projects. It's all listed here. You can look through that at your leisure, but based on what we had to date, I thought that the community-based innovation, the first one, was probably the most relevant to us.
Oh, thank you.
There's a list pretty much of all the programs that the state offers, and it's a very comprehensive list, but it seemed to me that, based on what's here, community-based innovation was probably the one we want to focus on in our upcoming plans. So whatever we decide, there's a lot of resources available other than that as well. Take a look through and know what's out there. And John, you know, we've been talking about a site walk for the, looks like the best time is a Saturday afternoon.
This Saturday,
No, not this Saturday, but a Saturday afternoon.
a Saturday afternoon. I would say, once the planning board and you decide which Saturday, we'll let people know, we'll remind them the day before as well, and you're gonna get Saturdays into the summertime.
Yeah.
She just got a camper.
Okay.
I like to.
Want to probably get by town meeting too, though. I want to get past town meeting, which will
Yeah.
be next week, so.
So-
The one after that is holiday weekend, so that brings us into the first weekend in June, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that okay for people here?
What is it for?
Under that previous program, we're looking at the Economic Development Corridor.
There is a, you know how there's like the mill overlay district, right? There is a, I don't know, a movement out there for like a village overlay
Oh,
district
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
They
And
looked at that before, didn't they, when Marty was around?
that was when we did the whole master plan. That was Central Mass Regional Planning's big thing was, takes a village, you know,
Yeah.
create the village, created downtown, right? Change the name of West Main Street to Main Street,
Gotcha.
you know, so, you know, I guess, to walk it, you guys, we're actually looking to kind of see, does it make sense to do it in an area like this? And then the devil's in the details, right? What's actually the wording of it? I had somebody reach out to me and say, they had heard that any change of ownership or new construction, there was a proposal for like 5 parking spaces or something, or room for that with this district. Is that true?
Which Friday was that then?
I don't know. The email basically had said that there was a, if you can hold 1 second, I'd actually like to read it.
Was that to do with the site plan?
No,
Review
no,
plan?
no, it has to do with this village overlay that is being looked at.
Okay.
It said that a zoning overlay that would require parking for at least 5 spaces on any property in that part of West Main when ownership changed hands, which would eventually force the property to become commercial. Is that true?
I'm not familiar with that part of it.
Okay,
It's-
that's
it's-
what I'm saying, the
this is all-
devil's in the
this is all-
details of this actual.
Devil's in the details, but it's not a detail we've confirmed yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's other options too, and if you, when you create a sort of concentrated, sort of downtown area like that too, sometimes the parking is waived. Because you can do shared parking, you can do public parking, you can do parking in the street, there's a lot of options for that.
So
What comes out of it?
who is behind this? Or who's pushing for this kind of creation of a village? I mean, is there a particular department?
There was a lot of focus on that. It was before I was here, but I guess it was around 2003 to 2005. There was some studies done, corridor
Oh,
studies, and
I was chairman of the planning board back then, and we tried it and
I'm
we
sorry,
nuked it.
2013 to 2015.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Wow.
Okay.
2013 to 2015, that
Okay.
timeframe. I'm sorry about that.
So is it possible as, you know, because we do have some new members, we're gonna have some additional new members probably in the next couple of months, any information or reports or anything that, if you could dig up, just email and
Sure.
share them, that way,
Send them back. Yeah.
they almost feel pretty uneducated talking about it. I'm willing to go for a walk around and listen.
Yeah, there was a report that was done in September 2015.
Okay.
Can we be overly simplistic and ask someone to give us 5 reasons we ought to do it and 5 reasons not? I mean, when I look at something like that, I need a simplistic approach. I need to know why do I want to do this? Why do I want to change? And what is the benefit for me to make this change for our area?
I agree. Yeah, it looks like it's, yeah, that'd be great. So we'll read up on it and,
Yeah.
then whoever's behind the report, maybe we'll get him in as a guest speaker.
And what you're trying to do is to walk on a Saturday, is that it?
Yeah, you said somebody will, well, I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that a couple of different boards will walk the area and someone will explain what they're looking at doing and
What the options are.
what the options are.
And how big of a stretch will that be?
Don't know.
I mean, is it a 5-mile walk? Is it a 1-mile walk? Going up
More like
Sco-
one.
Is it strictly West Main Street? Does it incorporate Schofield Ave?
Could.
Well, I can tell you from business, 10 to 12, you can do an open house in real estate. After that, forget it on a Saturday, you won't get people. So if you're trying to get board members and you're gonna do it on a Saturday, I'm gonna suggest you do it in the morning, because the afternoon does not work well, business-wise, for what that's worth. People got functions. And all of us who had to march in the parades have already walked the street. No. Yeah. I think you're gonna have a tougher sell than you may think. I think you need to give me a lot more information, and the townspeople, because your historic group will be right there with you,
Yeah.
trying to make a decision why we need 5 parking spaces on these properties, or change things.
Well, I don't know about 5 parking spaces. Like I said, there are a lot of other options. We haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
There's somebody threw out there, but
And the other part is, can you give examples of success? Why they did it and what was the result? I mean, is this what Putnam did? Is that what, I mean, they have beautiful and neat Main Street. Give me something that shows the success.
Putnam is a strong business association too.
But I mean, I kind of like their Main Street. I think it's kind of interesting, the mixture of stores. And I don't know if that was what the concept of village is, or are you talking about taking my whole Main Street and scatter this all over the lot, and how it works out? Some of us are real townies. We're tough to change. Some of us kind of came with this town.
Well, that's all part of it too, you know? Whatever comes out of it, what's the best option? How do we want to handle this?
All right. You got anything else?
Get those reports back to you.
All right, thanks. I do have a question. The Partridge Hill Road
Yeah.
and the solar farm,
Yeah.
has an agreement been reached?
I don't know. My understanding is that the town council is reviewing the issue.
Yeah, because they have literally a week to get it resolved, otherwise.
Yeah.
So, to give some background on the board, Joanne probably knows it. There is a development that was under development probably began 40 years ago and wrapped up 25 years ago. But the developer never finished the road. So it's still a private road, part of it. And so there's a problem with maintenance and just the whole condition of the road. And the developer doesn't have any collateral or escrows or bonds to finish off the road. So a couple of years ago, he agreed that he was going to, that if the planning board or the zoning board of appeals subdivided a piece of land for them, that he would take this lot and upon the sale of it, give it to the town so that the road could be finished and accepted to town standards. Well, that turns out that they now want to propose a solar farm there and not actually sell the land, but lease it. And so there's an article coming up at the town meeting for 2 parcels of land to have a solar overlay district put over those 2 parcels. The planning board held a public hearing on the article, and the solar company was actually quite professional, and they didn't have to notify the abutters about what they were proposing ahead of time, but they did this, and so there was a great discussion at the planning board. And I think most of the residents would be okay with the solar farm as long as, better than some of the other options for that land, but that nothing should be done until that road was finished, constructed. And so you have this timing issue now coming up where you have the town meeting next week. You have this article on there, and if there's not an agreement between the property owner and the town for the completion of that road, my understanding is the recommendation is going to be to vote that solar overlay district down. Because that's the only recourse the town has to get that road done.
I'm trying to, I know Partridge Hill Road, I'm not familiar with where it goes from Charlton to Dudley.
You're on the wrong Partridge Hill Road, probably.
Yeah.
All right.
You're in the,
One in Charlton, Dudley
Yeah.
comes off of
That's the
Dudley
one
Southbridge Road, go
All
past
right.
the intersection
Yeah.
of Nichols College,
Yeah.
it's your first right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
And-
in the wrong one.
And it has an even more interesting history, those of us who know it. People have septic systems on the opposite side of the road
Yeah.
in that area. So you can live on the right and your sewage system is on the left and the road is in between.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's rather unique.
that's pretty unique, but I think what would have to come out of that is that they'll have to get some kind of easement from the town, ultimately. When the road gets accepted, the town will have to grant an easement to those homeowners or something like that. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but
And, you know, historically, there have been two thoughts when it comes to private roads in Dudley. One is that there should be no private roads, and the other is all the roads should be private from this point forward, right? So the ones that say that roads should be private says, you know, look, you set up homeowners associations, you have them pay for their roads. The town shouldn't be involved with the plowing, the sanding, the maintenance of these roads. And so you get sort of fixed on your highway miles with the state. Now, the state gives you more money for more highway miles that you have. And so Dudley has pretty much stayed this path that, okay, most of your roads should be private going forward in these subdivisions. And so we really don't get too much more highway money. So all these other towns continue to get more and more highway money, and Dudley kind of stays the same because we think that it's better that the developers and everything do it. The problem with that is that developers die because they're human. And just because they start plowing a road today doesn't mean they're going to plow it tomorrow. What often happens is these developers will set up shell corporations and put them under.
Get rid of the-
And now we have all these neighbors that are just screwed. And you see that in Southbridge going on right now as well. And we have our own situations here in Dudley.
So in this situation, the guy doesn't have money, he's willing to give land to the town to sell and generate cash?
Well, that's
so
what he says.
He can take care of the road.
Yeah, that's what he
Is
says.
but that's,
But he was also supposed to have fixed this road 20 years ago.
right, but that's the
That's the basic-
context of the situation, right?
Yeah. And so now that he's going to be using the land and not actually selling it, leasing it, how does the town get that road fixed?
At the end of the day, that's the issue. The road needs to get done. So however we get there from here, it's not out of the town of Dudley's pocket. That's how it's gotta get done.
Yeah, and that's what our lawyers, and it's really a selectman, legal issue, because the agreement's with the town, right?
the zoning board of appeals set a condition of approval on
Okay.
variance for lot frontage.
All right. So it's all legal. It'd be nice if developers just did what they said they were gonna do and do it right first time, but you good ones and bad ones.
Well, it goes back to the days when developers only had to post a bond,
Yeah.
post a covenant, and and the bank would withhold money from each transaction, and then they would just hit the road, and there wasn't enough money from what was held back. That was before our subdivision control laws got reviewed by Central Mass the first time. They had the option just to go with that promise for withholding money from each one, and there was never enough money. It's before the days of passbooks and the whole 9 yards.
But fortunately for our board, roads don't come before us. Private roads, none of those, that's all planning board and, Board of Selectmen and legal. What was interesting about this one, though, was the solar overlay district, if the road is finished and the solar overlay district is approved and they do put a farm in there, it's could be good revenue for the town,
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, Yeah, it'll be, I was just curious with the town meeting. So when the planning board gives their report on it, are they gonna say if there's an agreement been reached? Because that's gonna be the question everyone wants to know.
That's not really an agreement with the planning board, it's an agreement with the Board of Selectmen, so.
All right,
As far as I know, the Board of Selectmen is having the legalities of the agreement reviewed at this point in time.
Who's giving the recommendation then on how to vote at the meeting? Because it used to be the planning board that.
The planning
would-
board gives the recommendation on the zoning itself.
Okay, but the recommendation then on whether to go forward is are the selectmen planning on giving input on that?
It comes down to that agreement, I guess, as far as they're concerned, but it's not, the planning board can't really get involved in that because
Yeah.
it's not zoning, it's not,
yeah, the only thing,
See?
yeah, is the actual overlay district, because that's its own an article, and it's gotta pass by 2/3.
the planning board is recommending that the article pass, but you can't really get into an agreement with the Board of Selectmen.
Interesting.
The Board of Selectmen are the road commissioners and et cetera, so.
Finest.
All right. Any old business?
Yes.
Sure.
I came up with a little proposal for the issue for a TV program, and I decided monthly is too much, maybe if we tried something that was quarterly. And in that quarterly program, probably 20 to 30 minutes is what would be needed. Talking about business happening in Dudley with guest interviews. I realize they're doing highlights, the selectmen, so we would be focusing on available sites for commercial, residential, farming opportunities to showcase them. I know we're doing it on the internet, but this might give an opportunity. You could either bring in the owner of the property or the real estate person to give information on what we have available for a commercial site, what the zoning would entail, some of the requirements. So I also thought maybe we could give updates through that program on planning and zoning changes. But lastly, financial information. We could bring in people who do commercial loans to talk about what kind of monies are available for people even specific to these types of properties to maybe move it forward. So the program is geared for commercial or land development. Could have been for somebody who was looking at a tract of land and what would it be zoned for? Could you do over 55? Could you do single-family housing? Then bring the financial person in to talk for a few minutes. What are the rates like? What kind of down payments? Trying to focus it on that. And your commercial doesn't change as much for things moving out in a hot market. So if we wanted to do it quarterly or 3 times a year, but it'd be a separate program that's geared to what we're trying to do. I mean, there's a big tract of land, yeah. We have a tract of land in Dudley that's a couple hundred acres that's been on the market at least 7 times I know of. Maybe if somebody could figure out, do they go to the land bank for farmland? What do they, bring in those things. I know for single family, people looking for houses, there are programs that are got $6,000 credit for your down payment, that if you're a buyer, to understand there's different opportunities. Well, for commercial, there's probably something also that they need to know. Bring in a couple of commercial lenders, talk a little bit about what they have available. But I think you could showcase the sites that we do have available for development on that method, either for leasing, for sale, however we want to talk about it. But it would be a different twist than what they're doing through the selectmen or what we're doing on that part.
I
mean,
think, it may not be part of the program, the TV portion of it, but I think maybe at some point we want to get commercial investors in here to see what they look for on their end.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff in real estate is site-specific. I'm not gonna name a property that just came up, and then I went, are they out of their mind? And it's on for $600,000, and then I went, I guess they're not. That's a business location at an intersection in Dudley. So you could end up with a gas station, you could end up, but there are different sites that people don't realize what the uses are that they could do, or that's out there. Again, you reach different segments through doing your blog, through doing the internet, through doing this. You may hit something, and you'd be surprised how many properties actually sell local. They're not necessarily outside. I mean, I worked on a property in Oxford for a year, and we were marketing Boston, we were marketing out towards Amherst. It was a historic property, and ultimately, a local person bought it. So you overlook sometimes what's right under your nose, and that's what the cable does for us, to maybe give the exposure locally. It's just something to think about. I gave a copy, I'll give you a copy, I just jotted it down, it's very simple. But that's what I gave to the selectmen today, to see if they want to look at doing something like that, giving us the time. And if it costs money to have somebody to run the camera, then maybe the people who want to come on and talk about their commercial sites that are available can pay a slight fee to cover the cost of whatever it takes to run the camera.
So, Fred, got a question. Our broadcast equipment, does it broadcast in high definition? Charter won't do that. Charter won't do that, all right. You know, the way our video system is set up today, because it's all tied through YouTube, you could even use your iPhone now and actually record it that way. You don't really need, so to speak, a whole video setup. And we could stream it live while you're doing it. It'll show up live on the website. It won't show up on Charter, but we could, once it's on the YouTube, we may be able to play it on Charter
Okay.
for the local. So what I'm saying is, if we do this, we shouldn't do it surrounding Charter, but do it, you know, say, you know, because, you know, with this day and age, right? Nice, crisp, high definition, live stream, stored on the website, and then just replay it on the local access.
Okay.
Would that, I mean, right? But you'd need, you know, someone like Todd or yourself there, you know, that's got a presence on camera to kind of be
You
be
can
the host.
rotate people, I'm
Yeah.
sure that won't be that hard to find people who would talk. I mean, but I think it might be another way to give exposure to what we're talking about, that what's available in our community.
I think it's a great idea.
It's an awesome idea. I really do. Because like you said, a lot of folks might not, you know, they might be investors and they might not realize, okay, you know, they'd like to purchase it, but in regards to the funding piece or the commercial loan piece, they might not know what exactly the requirements. You know, yeah, there's a spot there, but, you know, could there possibly be an environmental issue that might cost them, you know, $50,000+ because of all the, you know, environmentals that the banks would require or stuff like that. Or maybe there's not, and maybe, like you said, we can give details of these particular properties, and yeah, I mean, I think that in regards to having it like a, I don't want to say like a talk show, but like a new, like, I think that's awesome. I know a lot of other towns do it. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger, but I mean, it works.
We don't have to start off big, that's why I thought even quarterly or 3 times a year, and keep your time frame down to something realistic. I mean, realistic, even for a teacher, the average adult attention span is 7 minutes. If you don't change what you're doing in 7 minutes, the people who are listening to you no longer are listening to you. So I don't think we have to do a huge segment, but I think something like that may make an awareness, and again, you never know who an investor may be and what that opportunity clicks for them to go forward.
So as an action plan on it, what would be the next steps?
Well, I submitted to I didn't know if we needed money and permission to televise it. So I did drop a copy off today, because I came up with doing the 4 times per year, see if they need to approve anything for us to be able to do it, or if we're able to do it on our own. But what you're saying seems to say that we don't need money to really do this,
Yeah.
if we can figure out.
So I'll offer, you know, my volunteerism, you know, to make sure that if you film it, even just using your camera in high definition mode, I'll work with Fred and Teddy to make sure that we stream it live on YouTube. Because we stream it live on YouTube, it would probably be live stream on Facebook as well. And so I can take care of the logistics of that, and then working with them to make sure that the local cable access, whatever tape is there at the end, just continues to play.
Okay.
So, but
I'm willing to try and line up for the
Okay.
first one, to get the people to contact, to bring in, try and time it out to figure out how long it would last, and see if we can put something together to get it in the works, to give it some exposure. And then we can kind of, maybe if we need to form a few people, then to take it forward from that point. If we involve them in how the process works, it's not so overwhelming to be able to do.
So we,
I think it's a great idea.
yes, so anybody that's good taking videos with their camera and that may want to be the videographer or just switch it between the two presenters or, so think about it, all right? And then just keep us informed on how it progresses and what you need.
Okay,
And in the meantime, I'll start figuring out what we need to do to start streaming live on
Good.
YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah,
excellent.
is there any way that would be able to link it to other places? I'm just trying to think if like I was somebody, whether it be local or not local, looking to, purchase either, land, or commercial properties. I mean, most of the customers that clients that I deal with, they'll go on like LoopNet or something like that to see what's available. But, as we all know, a lot of times, it's not, things might not always be listed there, or maybe there's a property coming on. A lot of times I see things that are just, I don't know if they're private transactions, but there's just, things have been listed for a long time, and the next thing you know, somebody comes in and just, offers some money. And to get other people involved too, like not just, let's say, Hometown Bank, but you could get other banks. And, we could work together and just be like, yeah, this is how we, as commercial lenders, even though some banks have different appetites, like, for example, one bank might have, their commercial portfolio might be very heavily weighted on certain kinds of commercial properties. And they're looking to, okay, we're gonna tap the brakes on there for a little bit because we wanna focus on some other different area. And, I know, like at our bank, we're really looking for bigger projects. We want somebody to come in and buy, a piece of land, somebody who's looking to put up an owner occupied, whether it be a manufacturing company or a Henke Sass Wolf kind of a thing. So, and I'm sure other banks would jump at the chance to be able to get on camera and to tell a little bit about them. And maybe even pay for that, maybe even like have some sort of a sponsorship kind of a thing to be part of the program.
I think if we have costs that are involved, we can look at that, but I think we have so many good local banks, and people don't realize they do a lot of big projects. You go into other towns and you see signs up from banks that are from here, and you go, wow, they're
Yeah.
out here.
Right.
So I think I think we can use that, that's why I'm talking about a guest spot even for financial person. One can be for the person who's talking about a property, one can be to bring in a different financial person and give some exposure. And then even somebody who's watching, maybe it comes together, they're looking at something and that clicks with them to contact that lender and see
Right.
what are their opportunities with that.
And also, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's important to get the lender's view in too as well, as just the town, not just the
Well,
town's
'cause
view.
a lot of like my clients that I deal with, one of their first and foremost, questions that is the town easy or difficult to deal with,
Yeah, I
And-
get that
and-
impression.
And if we could, have folks from the town saying, listen, not only are we here showing you what's available, but, this is somebody from the zoning or somebody from, the plant, whatever, folks, the building inspector or stuff like, whatever it is, that they can say, oh, wow, Dudley wants to do business and they want to work with, on different size projects, whatever it is, whether it be a smaller project or a multi-million-dollar project. And you're right, Joanna, that a lot of these smaller banks, you don't realize that have the capability that, like our lending limit just went up. I mean, because we had two banks, East Hampton Savings Bank and Hometown, merged together under one holding company. We can entertain, we have deals, we have $25 million deal going on in Worcester right now. I mean, these are deals that, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have something like that attract a bigger company here to town? So, but like your Webster Fives, your Webster First, these are places that are very active and supportive to the community, and it's nice to see one of those signs in front of a project as opposed to some bank who's some big, like a Bank of America or some other bank that's not as locally focused. So that's my 2 cents.
I'll work on it for the next meeting, try and get something firmed up for you, and then we can talk about who can help us with the camera part of it and portion, and try and get a date when people are available to be specific on this for you,
Yeah.
okay?
That's a great idea.
I'm just reminded, PJ, of how in discussions with the old brochure, you were like, we should do video. You know, like, wow, you know, part of me's envisioning a whole bunch of these done, and then you do a nice little collage, and, you know, I mean, you got a whole bunch of things, like, yeah, no, it's a good idea. All right. Thank
Yeah,
you,
might
Joanne.
not be as big a dinosaur as you thought.
Never said that. Anything else under old business? All right, just a reminder, you have the town meeting coming up. What was it, the 21st, right?
First, yes.
Shepherd Hill Auditorium. 7 PM or 6:30?
When is this again?
7,
Next
right?
week?
I think it's usually 7.
Monday?
Yeah,
So much
I think
going
it's
on
like
in
7
schools.
o'clock. Sometimes they'll do like a special or something at 6:30, but no, I think we're good. All right. Well, with that being said, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
All right, Tom, your second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Can we call this the Joanne at Singzak show?
Yeah.